Coming up on DFE News, after 43 days, could the government shutdown finally be over? Also, a major media outlet caught editing video to make Trump look bad. Is it going to cost them? And infighting within the Republican Party happens all the time, but does it get in the way of getting things done? Vicki Tonkins, former chair of the El Paso County, Colorado Republicans, joins us with her thoughts. We've got news for you, those stories and more, right now on DFE News. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on DFE News, News Done Right. I'm Jeff Kirk. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, comment, so everyone gets to see DFE News. So much is going on. Let's get right to it. The longest government shutdown in history is finally over as the two sides reached a funding agreement. Congress voted Wednesday night to reopen the government, ending the 43-day shutdown, the longest in U.S. history. 8 Democrats voted with Republicans in the Senate Monday to provide the 60 votes needed to pass a continuing resolution, which then passed the House by a vote of 222 to 209, then was signed by the president. The agreement opens the government, provides back pay for furloughed workers, funds food stamps through September of next year, and sets a vote on Obamacare subsidies for December. With Democrats winning big in state elections last week, many on the left are calling the agreement a complete cave by their party since they felt they had some momentum, but all they got was the promise of a future vote on Obamacare. Some members of the media and Congress are calling on Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to retire or at least lose his leadership role for not getting more out of the deal, wondering what the point of the shutdown was at all since they essentially agreed to what Republicans had been offering from the beginning. The new continuing resolution only goes through January, so unless the two sides reach a longer-term agreement, we could be right back in the same shutdown boat again soon. The identity of the person who set multiple pipe bombs near the Capitol on January 6, 2021 may have been revealed. Video of the person suspected of placing pipe bombs outside the offices of both the Democratic National Committee and Republican National Committee on January 6 caused some to suspect the person may have been a female based on their walk. Blaze Media reports this week they conducted a gait analysis, or a computer analysis of the way a person walks, and found a 94% match to one Shawnee Ray Kirkhoff, who was a U.S. Capitol Police officer during the time of the January 6 riots. Kirkhoff left the Capitol Police later that year for a security position with the CIA. Although the intelligence agencies and media worked tirelessly to identify and prosecute every Trump supporter in the vicinity of the Capitol that day, for 5 years they haven't reported very much about finding the identity of the bomber. While Blaze Media's analysis has not been refuted, it's also important to note that gait analysis by itself is rarely accepted in court, and that the FBI has not officially named Kirkhoff as a suspect. Speaking of January 6th, the Trump administration is accusing the British Broadcasting Corporation, or BBC, of deceptively editing his January 6th speech to make it sound like he was calling for violence. New reporting shows the BBC doctored the video of President Trump's Stop the Steal speech on January 6, 2021, to make it sound like he was inciting the riot. The BBC deliberately put video clips together, which were nearly an hour apart in the actual speech, but made it appear he was encouraging protesters to be violent at the Capitol.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
As a result, both BBC Director General Tim Davie and News CEO Deborah Turnus have been forced to resign. In response to the report, President Trump has also threatened to sue the BBC for $1 billion. The Republican Party and the MAGA movement showed up in force and overcame all election anomalies in 2024 to put President Trump back in the White House in overwhelming fashion. But since then, a lot of infighting has come to light, and it's not just Republicans in Congress. The big question is, how will all that division impact President Trump's agenda? Vicki Tonkins, former three-term chair of the El Paso County, Colorado Republicans, joins us now with her thoughts. Vicki, the Republicans are fighting amongst themselves over a number of topics currently. Can these disagreements be helpful in any way, or will they just damage the president's agenda?
Well, Jeff, thanks for having me on the show. One of the things, I've been around for a little while, involved in local politics, and I got to tell you, the infighting has always been there. Sometimes it comes out in the public, sometimes it stays behind closed doors, but it has always been there. And I think a lot of it, as far as Republicans are concerned, is we're pretty much free thinkers. We're not go along to get along for the most part. We have our own thoughts, our own opinions, and therefore it can seem like infighting, but sometimes it's just we're not going to agree on everything. I mean, my goodness, I've been married 38 years and my husband and I do not agree on everything. So that's just part of not just the political process, it's part of life because you're not going to agree on everything. It depends on, I think sometimes we can keep it out of the public eye and just, try to work out our differences, but there's always going to be differences.
And I think so. One of those topics that's currently under a lot of discussion is whether or not President Trump is seriously considering running for a third term. Would you support any third term from a Trump presidency?
I would not support a third term for anyone unless it's changed in the Constitution. Unless there's an amendment to the Constitution concerning that, that's the only way I would support it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of support both ways, I think, but I tend to agree with you on that one. It's obviously we have had presidents who have at least begun a third term in the past, but then the Constitution was changed following that. So in theory, you could always change it back to make it the way it was before. Some of the other disagreements that we've seen a lot recently center around government spending. We've had a lot of individuals such as Thomas Massey or perhaps Rand Paul, maybe even Marjorie Taylor Greene, some of these individuals who would be within the Republican camp, but break with President Trump when it comes to the nature or the amount of government spending. Is there a way to get the party all together and on the same page for spending issues?
Well, my biggest thing, and I talk about this all the time, whether it's on my podcast or whatever else I'm doing out in the public, I'm always talking about the fact, what is the role of government? And we always have to go back to the founding documents. We have to go back to our Constitution. What does the Constitution and the founding documents say is the role of government? The main role of government is to take care of our safety. That's one of the main things that the government is supposed to do. And the other thing is to make sure that our freedoms as Americans is not infringed on by the government. So because our freedoms come from God, our freedoms do not come from the government. So I think in that context, that's how we have to view everything. Every decision that lawmakers make, every decision that affects the American people has to be looked at through the lens of our founding documents and our Constitution. And from what I have read in the Constitution, we have the right to bear arms, we have the freedom of speech, and those things should be protected by our government. And the government needs to make sure that we have safety. They have to make sure that our borders are safe, that those types of things that would affect the whole of America is guarded. And that's it. All this other spending that we're doing and all this other stuff that we're doing, and it's just not a lot of it is not constitutional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Another big topic that seems to be dividing Republicans right now is the issue of funding for the state of Israel. You have some establishment Republicans, some of the longer term ones, even President Trump in full support of Israel. Then you have some of the younger, perhaps the MAGA influencers on the other side who are opposed to any financial support to Israel. I think Charlie Kirk was starting to go down that road before his assassination. Can the Republican Party find unity on the topic of Israel?
I don't know, because Israel is viewed by, I guess you have two different camps. I'll talk about how I view Israel. I view Israel according to scripture. The scripture says that Israel is the apple of God's eye. Israel has been given land by God. And it also says in the scriptures that those who bless Israel will be blessed. And I feel like that we should bless Israel. Does that necessarily mean giving them money for wars and all that kind of thing? I don't know. But I do know that I pray for Israel. I know many other people pray for Israel on a daily basis because of what the scripture says, and that's how we lead our lives. Being a Christian, that's how I view it. Do I have all the answers on this? I do not. But I know one thing: we should not go against Israel. And that's not necessarily meaning we have to give them funding or anything like that to be for them. But we should not attack them. We should not go against them in war, that type of thing. So as long as that's not happening, I'm cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, a point I make a lot is they are the only democracy in the Middle East. That definitely is another link that we have in common with them in terms of style of government and views of rights and the role of citizens, as well as being able to elect your own representation within the government of a nation.
That is true. That is very true. And you feel that when you're in Israel. I've been there.
Oh, fantastic! I hope I can go someday. I would really love that.
I want to go back. I really do. Yeah.
Speaking of today's Republican Party and looking out into the future, assuming we are not looking at a third term for President Trump, is J.D. Vance the heir apparent to the Trump mantle for 2028?
I don't know. You're asking me the questions, and I'm like, I don't know. I know that he has an advantage over anyone else that would run for president because, hey, he's the vice president. He gets to see the ins and outs of what it looks like to be president, the decisions that have to be made, the pressures from the world, from our own country. He has a view that only someone who is in that area, from president to vice president, can see. So he has an advantage in that respect. Going in to him being vice president, I didn't know anything about him. I tried to research and find out as much as I could about him, read his story and all of that. I don't think we can truly say any person will be the next president. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen between now and 2028. We just don't know.
Yeah, still so far away. Really, anything can happen. Even people even say anything can happen in the final year leading up to an election, to where all bets are off if you're looking too far ahead.
Exactly. And who knows? I mean, we're just assuming he's going to run.
Yeah,
you know, that could change. You know, by the time that election rolls around, he says, "I'm not doing this anymore."
Yeah, it may be enough. All the negative attention from the left is, well, especially for somebody with a family, that can really take its toll.
Yes.
So, Vicki, you led the El Paso County Republican Party in Colorado for 6 years, giving up your leadership position this year to run for El Paso County Commissioner in District 5. Why do you think Lauren Nelson won that race instead of you?
Well, according to what the numbers say, she got more votes. That's usually how you win. I have some concerns because there's several people who have pointed out to me there's 40,000 ballots missing in this race, and we don't know what happened. So that's something that people are looking into. They're talking to the clerk of recorder's office and how do 40,000 votes just disappear? I am concerned that she has already voted on the side of allowing buildings to be done by some of the builders in our county, and has also taken money from them. I'm very concerned about that, because when you take money from those who have benefited from your decision, it looks a little fishy. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm, as a prior Air Force officer, there's definitely very stringent rules about appearance of impropriety, whether or not there is any wrongdoing at all. It almost doesn't matter. You have to make sure that everything is above board and visible, and that everything is above reproach. So I can definitely sympathize with that that viewpoint there. In terms of the El Paso County Republican Party, does it mirror the larger national Republican Party in terms of having these same types of divisions and infighting?
It does. I mean, it trickles down, sometimes it trickles up. But I think there's, a lot of people say there's two camps in the Republican Party here, particularly in El Paso County. I tend to agree with that. My thing, as I always go back to, is what does the Constitution say? Because we still have to be held to that. The other thing is one of the main issues in the Republican Party here in El Paso County. It's the largest county in the state. That's one of the main issues, which makes it interesting when having to make decisions about things for the party. The other thing is people, they don't know how to equate the Republican Party and the things that have to be done there. I saw it as a business. Most businesses that I have ever worked for or know about, from schools to corporate America, there's always policies and procedures on how you do things. But in political world, it's called bylaws. And I have learned that people assume what bylaws state, but they don't take the time to read them. And one of the things I learned early on is, if I'm not aware of what these bylaws are saying, at least have an idea of what they are saying, then I'm going to be behind the 8 ball all the time when it comes to having meetings and all of that. Because I can tell you, my first meetings were horrible. They were just horrible because they were just horrible. I go in, I'm the type of person, I believe the best of everybody when I'm going in. But when you show me something different, then I have to adjust. So I discovered very, very early on in my first term that I had to know those bylaws. I had to know the rules and the regulations and the policies and procedures. So I literally read the bylaws from cover to cover 3 days a week minimum, so that I could familiarize myself enough. So when I went into a meeting, if someone said something, well, we've always done it that way, it doesn't mean just because you've always done it that way, it's right. What does the bylaw say?
Right. What are we supposed to be doing? Yeah.
Exactly. And people have said, oh, Vicki, she just breaks the bylaws and she doesn't follow the bylaws, which I always have my bylaws right there with me at every meeting. And I've always said to them, and here's the other thing about the Republican Party and any organization: do not assume what someone says is right or correct or true. So when people would say to me, well, you violated the bylaws, da 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 da, because you did this, I said, actually, the bylaw says da 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 da. I did not violate the bylaw. I violated how you wanted me to do a certain thing, but that doesn't mean I broke the rules. Just because I don't do it like you does not mean it was wrong and I violated the bylaws. So those are the types of things that I always encourage anybody who is running for any position. You need to know what that position is about.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely an immeasurable asset to have. Talking about a little more on the national level, talking about the filibuster rule, there's been a lot of discussion about that and possibly getting rid of the filibuster. What do you say about that particular topic?
Well, it's kind of a catch-22, because if you get rid of it, then everything can go crazy. If you don't get rid of it, you have a shutdown for 41 days, So we need people in these positions that make these types of decisions who know how to critically think and see things from both perspectives and see it down the road. We can't just look at right now. That's how teenagers look. It's just right now. My life is over. We have to have people who can look down the road and see what ramifications could be there. I don't know why this one thing is in place. It's almost like it was put in place to catch problems, but then at the same time, it created problems. Because, we are taught that if you get more votes, you win. Whether it's 1, 2, or 3, you win. In this case, we're saying, oh, you got more votes, but you don't win because you didn't get this amount of votes. Now, some things, when I talk about our bylaws, some things in our bylaws, you have to have more votes than just the 50 plus one.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is good and bad because it can do some good, but I think it could also do some bad. And that's going to zero down to who is in the position and who is going to look at this from the perspective of the American people and not their political aspirations.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people are saying that if the Republicans, while they're in charge, if they don't get rid of it, then the Democrats will get rid of it as soon as they're back in charge again. And then what have you gained? And it seems like you said, it's a catch-22. Either way you go, there's bad that can occur, but perhaps there's some good that could occur as well. Vicki, final question. What is your hope for the future of the Republican Party, whether that's national level or local level?
Well, I know a lot of people talk about unifying, and I've gotten to the point sometimes I don't really like the word. I like the word when I go to church and it says that the church comes together and unifies because we're unifying around Christ. Okay, I'm good with that. When we talk about unity in the Republican Party or any other thing that we're part of, what are we unifying around? We have to have something. You can't just say, oh, we need to come together, because sometimes when you say we need to come together, you're saying, okay, you need to listen to me and do exactly what I say. And sometimes that means you need to sit down and shut up. Well, that's not unity. That's dominance, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, as a party, say, what is it that we want to unify around? The main thing we need to unify around is something that I'll always talk about, and you've probably heard me say it about 5 or 6 times here already: the Constitution of the United States of America. I look at the Constitution of the United States of America as our policies and procedures in running our government. With that said, if we're going to have unity, we have to know what we're unifying around. Otherwise, unity will never, ever happen in the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the Libertarian Party. It doesn't matter what party it is. You're not going to have unity if you don't know what you're unifying around. That's a problem with the Republican Party in messaging. We don't talk about what we're unifying around. We just scream, unity, unity.
Well, we've had your contact information on the screen, so those watching can get in touch with you if they have any questions. Vicki Tonkins, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We'd like to wish a happy Veterans Day to all of you who wore the uniform or supported someone who did. Veterans Day has its roots in Armistice Day, which celebrated the end of World War I on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. President Eisenhower was the one who signed the law in 1957 to establish November 11th as Veterans Day to celebrate those who fought in any war to defend the United States. This Veterans Day, I had the chance to get out of the studio and speak with a local Purple Heart recipient to get his story.
Hey everybody, this is Jeff Kirk from DFE News, wishing you all a blessed Veterans Day today. We thought we'd speak to some veterans in our neighborhood. Here I have Barry Roth, and I will let Barry tell us a little bit about his time in the service. Please tell us what service you were in, what kind of MOS you did, or what you did.
Okay. I was drafted into the Army immediately after I graduated from college in 1969, before the number system came out. If you were healthy and breathing, you got drafted. So they wanted me to go to OCS because I had a college education, but I didn't want any part of more than 2 years in the Army, so I declined. And they said, well, we're going to put you in the infantry and send you to Vietnam. I said, so be it. So that's what they did. I went to basic training and AIT, and then went over to Vietnam in May of 1970. I went with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade, and we were the first company in Cambodia May 1st of 1970. We spent 2 months in Cambodia, and then 199th went home, but I didn't have enough time in country, so then I went with the 25th Infantry. We were operating in the Central Highlands in Vietnam. I spent a year in the jungle. I was what is affectionately known as a grunt, infantry. And basically what we did is we went out and walked through the boonies all day and set up ambushes in the nighttime on trails. One day we set up a ambush on a trail in the daytime, and we put our claymore mines out, and they must have heard us, because instead of them tripping our tripwires, they lobbed RPGs in our position. And
RPG, rocket-propelled grenade.
Rocket-propelled grenade. And 3 of us were wounded. I had a big hunk of skin taken out of my back, but it was mostly flesh. So they came in with a helicopter, evacuated us out, and went back to the rear end, where they took the bad stuff out of me and stitched me up. And in 5 days, I went back out again.
Oh, 5 days.
5 days.
Wow.
Yep, 5 days. If you got wounded twice, you got to go home. But luckily, I wasn't wounded twice.
Once was enough, right?
Once was enough. I lucked out on the first one. So I spent a total of 1 year, 9 months in the service. Most of that time was training in Vietnam.
Actually, overseas there, Vietnam, Cambodia,
Right.
For the majority of the time.
Yep, 1 year over there and about 7 months in training. And then they sent me, when I came back home, I lived 5 miles from Fort Dix, New Jersey, and they sent me to Fort Carson, which was good because I met my wife.
Perfect. It's funny how things work out like that.
There's a wife there while I was at Fort Carson, and we were married. I met her in 1971, and we were married in 1972. So that's my Army story.
Yeah. How long did you have to wait for your Purple Heart?
Actually, it was pretty immediate. They gave it to me in Vietnam.
Oh, wow, before you even left.
Yeah. The bad part of that is that before, it was really quick because I sent it home and they received the Purple Heart before they knew what happened. So they thought I was dead.
Oh, boy.
So that was good.
Well, if they're going to be mistaken, that's something good to be mistaken
Yeah,
about.
so that wasn't good, but it all worked out fine in the long run, and that's it. Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much for your time. It was a very tumultuous time for the country and definitely took its toll on our young men. But thank you for your service. And thanks for speaking with us today. That's Barry Roth. He's a Vietnam veteran, U.S. Army, and Purple Heart recipient.
As a 20-year Air Force vet myself, thanks to all of you for your service, and we hope you had a great day. For our last story, thanks to a large solar flare, the northern lights have been visible much further south than usual this week. Experts at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration say the northern lights, or aurora borealis, are caused by charged particles from the sun interacting with the Earth's magnetic field, most typically at the poles. When larger than usual solar flares happen, like this week, it has a larger effect on the Earth, and the results are spread out over a wider area than usual. Viewers reported seeing the lights as far south as Texas, Alabama, and even parts of Florida. It's not all pretty lights, though. Solar flares also interrupt radio communications, which were degraded across large portions of Europe and Africa. The effects and the lights are expected to fade after a day or two. Wow, there's some incredible pictures. What a beautiful creation we're so blessed to live in. Well, that's it for now. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, comment, and engage with us so that YouTube and all the socials push it out to more viewers. If you're interested in becoming a DFE sponsor, you can click on the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. Thanks for watching DFE News. News done right. See you next time.